You got to hire fast and fire faster. The sooner you can figure out someone's not going to be a fit for your team, the better. You got to hire the right people, sure, but you have to have the right people in the right seats. You need to find a new job because you don't really like where you are. And man, life is short. And if you're going to spend 8 hours a day, 5 days a week at a place where you're miserable, you need to figure something else out. If one person isn't doing their job, the whole company suffers.
Welcome to the 80/20 Recruit Podcast, the show that's all about mastering remote talent acquisition and retention. Whether you're hiring your first remote worker or scaling your team, we've got you covered. I'm Frank, your host. Let's get started. So welcome to another episode here. I'm in my third interview. This time I got Justin Toomey. He's the CEO and Managing Director of SVN Toomey Property Advisors, where they provide superior commercial real estate solutions and property management services across the Southeast. So, Toomey, Justin, welcome to the show. Maybe we can start by getting to know a little bit more about your business and overall your role in talent acquisition.
So thank you for having me. So I started my company in October of 2019, and it was just me by myself. And then COVID happened. And so 2020 was my first full year in business. And it was also almost my last year in business. It was almost over before it started, but luckily I was able to push through. I couldn't, one foot in front of the other during that time. I was able to seek out some financing, make it happen. And since then, we've been on an upward trajectory the entire time. So we provide commercial real estate across the Southeast, like you mentioned. We have specialties that we practice in: self-storage, multifamily, retail, office. We do property management as well, which is a beautiful addition to commercial real estate services because it adds basically a built-in database of properties that we can hopefully take to market once we stabilize. And we manage assets in 3 states currently. I'm licensed in 5 states, so we do brokerage a little bit further out because it's easier to do at distance. But we're one of the only, if not the only, national full-service firm in Mobile, Alabama, where we're headquartered.
That's right. And can you tell me a little bit about your role in talent acquisition and what do you like more about that?
Yeah, so my role is always changing and evolving. When I first started, I was the only person here, so I had to do everything. And I realized pretty quickly that I am not capable of doing everything. Matter of fact, I'm not even good at that many things. It's like I've got my specialty, which is really just trying to build relationships, make phone calls, do that sort of high level stuff. And so over the years, I've realized that I've got to hire people that are smarter than me and better than me so that they can do what they're good at and I can focus on what I'm good at, which is, again, really just getting out there, making phone calls, making relationships, and growing the business. So these days, literally, that's exactly what I'm doing again, because we've gotten to a point where we need to grow again. We manage about 900 units right now, and my goal is to get to 5,000 units on the management side of things. And so the only way to do that is to pick up the phone and let people know that I exist and that my company exists. If they don't know I exist, they're not going to call me. It's pretty simple.
Justin, I'm curious to know, we get a lot of companies that are about to hire their first hire. And sometimes I recommend one thing, sometimes I recommend another, depending on where we're at. I'm curious to know, what was your first hire? And what would you recommend to be their first hire if they were on a similar position that you were at?
My first hire was a new to business person that did not have a real estate license or anything. They had to get that. And hiring is the most difficult thing because I don't like reading resumes because I can type things on a piece of paper and send them to you right now, and they could be a figment of my imagination. The only thing that I've found that works is hiring someone, getting them in the position, and then seeing if they can do it. It sucks. I wish there was a better way, and maybe someone smarter than me has a better way. But I learned from the former chief development officer at SVN International years ago that hire fast and fire faster. Some people have a different take, but that has been my experience because I have no idea how to really gauge a person's level of commitment or dedication or drive until they're in the seat operating whatever it is they need to do.
So your first hire was someone in sales, if you will. Yes.
And they didn't last. They lasted a few months, and I fired them. So I mean, like, and then my next hire was another person in sales. They lasted actually until this year. I had to let them go. So they turned out to be pretty good, but we had a difference of opinion on how we operate, and so I had to let that person go. I have hired and fired probably around 100 people at this point. Maybe it's 80, maybe it's 90. I'm not real sure, but I've got a pretty solid team right now, and so I've got advisors that do the brokerage, the sales, and then I've got the managers that obviously handle the operations of the assets.
So, Justin, looking back, what would you recommend your younger self to go and hire? Would you go and hire same sales or maybe an executive assistant first, or what would you go first?
That's a good question. Probably sales. I needed the sales first because when there was just me, I didn't really need an assistant because there wasn't that much going on. But to bring in additional revenue, when I first started, we did not do management, so it was just a sales job or a sales company, and so I needed to hire sales first, and that's what I did.
Great, great, great advice. Let's go into the next section, and let's dig a little bit deeper into the section that's called hiring talent. I want to know, first of all, what is the role that you think technology plays in these days regarding recruiting?
Yeah, I think it plays a huge part. Both sides of the table, though, because I found that the candidates that are coming in for hires can use technology, AI, to create this beautiful resume. It's not of their own words. It may not be 100% accurate. And so that's not necessarily ideal for us on the hiring side of things, but we can do the same, you know, technology based services when we're vetting those individuals. And so what we've done, we just started with a new software on hiring, and it has them do some background checks, some personality tests, some, I guess, skills assessments. And that's been helpful to kind of know where they're going to stack up because I learned a long time ago from someone else that you got to hire the right people, sure, but you have to have the right people in the right seat. And I'm sure you've heard that before, but if you've got the right person in the right seat, it doesn't do any good. Well, if you can know ahead of time what the right seat might be, again, there's no perfect science, but if you can tell that, you know what, they might be an excellent person to fit this role that I need based on those tests that they did, maybe I'm going to start them there and maybe I'll get to the right seat a lot quicker than some of the old ways I used to do it.
So is this software that you're using, is it an ATS?
It's I'm not sure what ATS stands for.
But it's a software for managing candidates and companies and all in the same.
Probably yes. It's called Career Plug that we're using now. It
Administrative
syndicates
talent system, I've heard, but it goes that way. So what does it do, the software? And what's the name, if you will?
Career Plug,
Okay.
and it's a killer price. It works very well for us. We can put everything in our job postings in that one software, and then it syndicates to all the other job posting boards. It analyzes the people coming in. It has those tests that they can do that you can require they do ahead of time. It gives you analytics as you're tracking them to see what's working, what's not working. So it's an all-in-one software on hiring, and so far we have really enjoyed it.
Sorry, can you repeat the name again so I can put it in the show notes?
Yeah, it's called Career Plug.
Career Plug. Good. All right. Thank you. Thank you for that. So let's go. Let's go to the next question that I have regarding hiring. What do you think is the biggest mistakes that companies make when sourcing and hiring candidates?
Well, the biggest mistakes that I have made is believing everything I hear. That has been the biggest mistake. I would imagine most other companies have that same issue because, again, anybody can say anything. I wish there was a better way to figure out what they were actually willing to do, what they were good at ahead of time. But believing everything I hear is not something I would recommend.
All right. And how would you double check, double question without being or showing that you don't trust?
We have our set of interviews. We usually try to do a few of them. I have additional people in the interview with me because again, some person might hear something different than I hear. And so that then we can reconvene afterward and kind of go over the notes of what we thought they were saying. And it's really just the experience. Every time we do it, we learn a little bit something else. Like, oh, well, if they don't use this way to be organized, they may not be a fit for us. So it's just kind of been a trial and error over the years. But having multiple people in the interview on our side of the table has been a big fit for me. And then what I'll try to do once the initial interview is done, is have them go and meet the rest of the team and have them just go chat with some of the other team members we have in the office without me there. That way they can just kind of get a feel. And that's helped tremendously. We've had some people sit in with some of our current people, and then I'll get a report at the end of the day, like, I don't think they're going to work here because they were saying this, or this. Like, oh, good to know, because they wouldn't have told me that. But when they're talking to just another individual in the office, they might be a little bit more open.
Right. Do you hire remote at all?
No, we have not done that. I've found that I like people in my office. I can train them better. I can analyze what they're doing on a more consistent basis. We can have weekly meetings or bi-weekly meetings in person. I just don't, for me, the remote side of things has not been the greatest.
So you've had experiences, but not the greatest.
Yep. I've got one advisor now that is remote, and just by circumstance. And it's just more difficult to get them trained properly to provide the assistance they need on deals that they're working on. It just makes it more difficult. But if I'm always at the office, and so they can just knock on the door or walk in and make me stop what I'm doing and help them, which is what I tell everyone to do, it's so much easier. But when somebody sends me an email or a chat or a text, and I'm in the middle of something, I'm laser focused. I'm not going to stop what I'm doing because I'm just in the middle. And sometimes I don't even recognize that I've gotten another message. And so now they've got to wait, and it delays the process. And so if they can just walk in my office and make me stop, they get what they need much faster.
Get it. Let's talk a little bit about, I heard you say that you said something like, when I test candidates, do you have any special behavioral model that you trust more or that you use more? For example, predictive index, DISC, or systems personalities, any of those?
We've used the Myers-Briggs a couple of times, and that has been helpful. And then the new software, I don't know what exactly it uses, but it has that capability. And so we use that and we get the report back. But again, I'm not sure what the technical term of their analysis would be, but it is helpful to see how they stack up. And we actually just took on a couple assets for a client, and they sent us some, it might be included, one of those tests to do. And it was pretty cool to get the results. And it helped me understand my own people, and then again, myself better. It's kind of enlightening when you take the test yourself, because I would recommend, if you're going to test people with anything, it's like you should take the test first yourself and see how accurate it may or may not be. If you think it nailed you, it's probably going to do the same to the other folks.
So that's great advice, because we are good, and that's a lot of like human nature. We're really good at judging other people, but when it comes to judging ourselves, I think it's great to start on our own first. So let's go to the next section that is called building teams. I want to ask you if you could enlighten us with a few onboarding tactics or best practices so that they're onboarding effectively.
Yep. So we've got, again, that's where my team comes in. When we're bringing someone in, I like to pair them up with a more experienced person. Again, this is whether it's for management or for brokerage services. It doesn't really matter. When they're new to business, or even if they're not new to business, I like to pair them with someone else so that they can run deals together or run the management software together, so they can learn from someone that's literally doing it day to day. That's been the biggest help, because sitting in the office and training and listening is all well and good, but having someone right next to you perform the task, you watch them do the task, and then they hand it to you, and then you immediately do the task as well while they're watching, has been a much better way to onboard and to get the training done a little bit faster. And again, it provides another level of security for me, because the people that are with me, I trust them, and they can report back and say, you know what, this person's picking this up fast, or maybe they're not picking this up at all. And so back to that statement I said a little while ago, you got to hire fast and fire faster. The sooner you can figure out someone's not going to be a fit for your team, the better. Because one bad apple, one bad attitude, whatever you want to say, really does bring the entire team down. Because that is how we operate. We operate as a team, whether it's brokerage or not. We have very few deals in brokerage that we work individually. Even myself, I don't really do individual deals anymore. I always bring on a junior with me because it frees me up to do other stuff, provides pay for them to help them get a little bit of income quicker, and then obviously huge training benefit for that individual.
Right. I want to know a little bit about trust. How do you build trust with your team, especially when they're onboarding? And I want to say that because we talked about trust before. When you start asking questions when in the recruiting part, but now that they're on your team, how do you build trust with your teammates,
Yeah. The only way I found to do it is to give them the responsibility. So I guess I have to start with a base level of trust, give them the tasks, that whatever they are, and then have them send it back to me when they're done. If it's working on an offering memorandum for a property, here's how you do it. Now you go do it. And then you bring it back to me when you're done. If you're looking at a lease, you go read that lease, you tell me what you think, and then you bring it back to me. If it's uploading a new tenant into our software, here's how you do it. Now go do it, and then come back to me and let's check it. So it's really letting them do it, have the say, but then double checking it. And so after maybe a month of double checking everything they do, whether it's me or one of my team members, that level of trust starts growing and growing. And usually within a month and a half or 2 months, I don't have to do that anymore, because they've proven time and time again that if I give them a task, they're going to execute it correctly. Or if they don't do it correctly, no big deal. They know how to fix it and they'll address it. And so that's kind of how we build trust in the office, with just really giving them the trust up front, double checking, and then letting them move off without us having to double check.
Hey there, a quick break to remind you that 80/20 Recruit podcast is brought to you by 80/20 Recruit, helping you hire pre-vetted, top-performing remote talent from Latin America. Save hours of recruiting and find the perfect fit for your team. Visit 8020recruit.com to learn more. That's great. And what about, that's related with trust as well. What about the measurement of success and performance? How do you use any operational system or any system at all regarding KPIs to measure your business?
We have done that over the years. That goes back to something I said earlier, where I've had to build a team around me because I can't do it all. And so when I was first starting, I tried to do it all. I tried to track the KPIs on cold calling and meetings, and I'd get busy doing whatever it was I was doing, and I'd fail to do that. And so right now we've, again, started to do it again. My CFO has taken on that role, but then I bog him down with all kinds of stuff. And so we are remiss in that we don't do it as frequently as we should, because it is a huge benefit to do that. But man, there's sometimes not enough time in the day, and I don't have enough staff to do it. In a perfect world, we would do that religiously, but unfortunately right now we just don't.
Great, but yeah, I mean, the ought to do is a lot bigger than the amount of things that you as an entrepreneur, whoever as an entrepreneur, at the end of the day, you have to do so much stuff, and you get shuffled in all the to-dos, all the hiring, all the leadership, all the business. So I agree. We use the methodology that is out of a book that I totally recommend. The book is called Traction, and the methodology is called, man, I'm bad with names today. It's called an EOS, Entrepreneur Operating System. It's pretty known, especially in the real estate world and technology as well, I've seen. But yeah, we totally recommend that, and keeps you on track. There's coaches out there for those.
I started to read that book, and then I got sidetracked with work, but I've read a few other books. Same kind of concept. One was by Jocko Willink, Leadership Strategies and Tactics, and then one, Principles by Ray Dalio, and I can't remember the other one. But the funny thing is, they all say the same thing in a different way, and tracking their metrics, seeing how they're doing, And then the latest one with Principles by Ray Dalio and Leadership Strategies, it's basically extreme ownership and then extreme honesty, being upfront, communicating your expectations very clearly, following up with whether it's weekly or biweekly meetings in person to follow up on how they did on the tasks that they were assigned. That is, again, I wish I was more efficient and did the EOS system better because again, that the book, honestly, I started to get a little bummed out about it. I was like, man, that's a lot more work I need to be doing. I've realized how beneficial it would be, but I need to hire someone just to do that. It sounds like because it would be huge, huge help.
Yeah, maybe a good advice or suggestion on our end here is that maybe you don't have to do all at once. Maybe do the rock thing first, then once it's into your habits of doing it, how to do the meetings next, and go from the biggest things to the more little ones to the smaller ones, and take it from there. But it's like going to the gyms. You're not gonna go all in and do all the whole minutia all at once. But it's like any habit. So we talked about recruiting. We talked about building teams. Now I want to talk a little bit about how you found great talent. I want to talk a little bit about retaining talent. So I want to know what are your top strategies for retaining good employees?
The first one, I don't think will be shocking, or maybe will to some people, but it's the culture. If you got a place that people want to show up, that's a damn good start. I have found over the years I've hired folks and they're constantly watching the clock. Man, they can't wait for Friday. They dread Monday. If that's where you work, you need to find a new job because you don't really like where you are. And man, life is short. And if you're going to spend 8 hours a day, 5 days a week at a place where you're miserable, you need to figure something else out. And so having a culture and the attitude of the folks in that culture that all kind of relate is made a huge win because people, when they show up here and if they're the right fit for our culture, they don't want to leave because we've made it an attractive place to be. Along with that, though, you've got your typical stuff where you provide full benefits. We do so that we have people again that they're rewarded for their efforts here. And what I've always told anyone that I've hired, whether it was 4 years ago or now, hey, right now we can only do this because we only have so much revenue coming in. But as we grow, I'll do this, this, and this. And every time I've done that, we have grown, I've added more revenue, more profit, and I've been able to give back to the team through benefits. The latest was at the end of last year, we bought several company cars so that people could use the cars to go to our properties instead of their own. But I can't do that without a good team being profitable. And so we're, again, it's like one living organism, the company here. If one person isn't doing their job, the whole company suffers. But when everyone is performing to their best, we can afford more things. We can have more fun. We can take more company lunches. We try to do company lunches once a month at least, where we just shut the office down and have a good Friday lunch. Those are part of that culture and that atmosphere that we have here where, again, I want people to want to be here.
I totally agree. I love it. Totally pro creating an amazing culture. But how do you do that? Do you write it down? Is this part of your vision mission? What are two or three ways to start and or to make sure that you're on that way?
Yeah. So actually, we're SVN as a national franchise. So we're the independently owned and operated franchise here that I own with SVN, and they've got their core covenants, which stack up. I didn't know this when I started or joined them, but they stack up perfectly to how I operate. And it's very simple. It's and honestly, it's like 10 of them, but to sum it up in a real small nutshell, do to others what you would have done unto you. That whole saying, I literally believe that. I literally practice that. People hear me say that constantly. They probably get tired of it. But if I'm going to build a good culture, no matter what's written on paper or what comes out of my mouth, I have to act that way as well. And that's what I do. If someone comes in, I'm going to treat them exactly the way I would like to be treated. And that goes from our lowest income tenants to our highest net worth clients. I don't care the amount of money you have. None of that matters to me. I'm going to treat you the way I'd like to be treated. And if I do that in here and I do that with my team, man, it makes life a lot easier for everybody. And again, it shows them that I'm not just saying crap. I literally believe it I practice what I preach. And I think that's the ultimate tool to building a good culture is believing it and doing it yourself.
Great. I want to hop into another part of retaining talent, and it's about career development and promotion. So I want to know, first of all, your take on that, on career development and promotion, and together with a small slight opinion on that. Well, I see that in a lot of companies, and I don't know if you do this or not. So anyway, but I see that in a lot of companies, people go to task doing to then maybe managing, maybe leadership. So it's looked at that if in order to evolve in your career, you have to do management. And maybe it's not so. Maybe um, best salespeople, not all, but they could go into management, but lots of the times they go into management and they flop. Um, the same way that, I don't know, athletes, they don't always go to management. They're great at doing whatever is they're great at and in their sport. They're the best forward or their best defense and they don't evolve from defense to forward in order to. So where I'm going is that if you hire like a cold caller, maybe they can double their salary by just being amazing and excellent. What do you think of that?
Actually, I agree on the brokerage side. That's what SVN kind of preaches is if you're doing brokerage, you should have a specialty and you should be the master at that because real estate has several different asset classes that you can specialize in, but it's hard to be an expert in all of those things. So there's so many moving parts and pieces. So on the brokerage side, say self-storage, all right, that's your niche. Do it, own it, learn everything you can, be the expert. And then when anything happens, self-storage related in our office, you are the person that we call. And so I found the same thing though with any kind of employee. You got to, like I said earlier, you got to find the right seat for the individual. And sometimes that takes a little bit of time because they might be killer, but they may not be the best at cold calling, but maybe they're a killer at organization. And so let's move them along. And once they find that seat, I still want to be able to elevate and promote them within the organization. And so luckily with us here, we're always actively trying to grow what we do. And so as we do that, they're going to be elevated by default. And again, I don't believe in elevating someone without pay increases because if you're taking on more responsibility, you should get more reward. And so if that means you stay with what you're doing, but you just have folks underneath you, now you're delegating to them to do whatever it is that's too remedial for you, you can move up and take a bigger view of things. I think that's been the best thing. So specializing no matter what it is, and then growing in that specialty to as high as possible.
That's right. I totally agree. And when people look forward to having a career and to being in a culture where they have fun and or where they get challenged and they can grow, that's a great recipe for retaining talent. Anything else you want to tell us about retaining talent?
That leadership strategies and tactics book, it talks about no matter what the position, they should be treated as a leader and they should be growing towards a leadership role. You mentioned, people being in management or not, but again, they can be a leader in their role, no matter what that is. And so the only way to do that, though, is to build that trust with them, put them in the right seat, start building the trust, realize that they can do it, and then giving them more stuff to do because you don't want them to get bored. But if they take ownership, extreme ownership in what their task is, meaning they know that this is their baby. They are going to take this. They're going to succeed with it. If there's an issue with it, it is going to fall on their head exclusively. So they're going to have to address it. It gives them a little bit more self-worth, I think, a little bit more purpose in the organization. And I think it helps drive driven people better. Again, if you find someone that's not driven, I don't think there's any help in the world for those type of people, at least not that I can help with. And so you've got to find the driven ones. But for folks that are driven, you give them more stuff to do, they're going to succeed with it if they know that it's really their piece of the pie.
Justin, I got one last kind of strange, maybe wide question. Feel free to go wherever you feel like it. So what is your position on fixed salaries, variable salaries, anywhere in between salaries? Because for some reason, sales positions usually, not always, usually go up a lot of variable, some variable, and other maybe admin positions, they don't. There's a school of thought that I romantically liked a while ago. Maybe I haven't made up my mind yet, but sometimes I feel like, hey man, this is your job. You get paid 100, whatever. If you do it, you get paid 100. If you don't, you leave, right? Something like that. So it's not like if you do it partially, then you get 150, or more, you get 150. So what's your take on that? You do the admin well, you get 100. You do sales well, you get 100. If you get 1 month 150, it's because you didn't do your best the month before, or what's going on. You know where I'm going?
Yep, I agree. If you do better and more, you should get rewarded more. And I come from the mindset of a commission-based broker. I mean, that's how I started. So I had to, if I did not earn the money, no one was going to pay me a dime. And so it made me work harder because I knew that if I worked harder, I would get more money. And I do like making money. And so even with our staff here, our admin staff, we literally just yesterday all gave them bonuses on their next check because we onboarded a lot of new property. They all performed well. They all worked hard. And actually, my wife came up with the idea. It's like, let's reward them with a little bit. It's like, all right, yeah, let's do that. And at the end of the year, same kind of concept. Like if you've worked hard, you can do better. The Christmas bonuses that we can give. And it's not always money that we can reward with. Like I mentioned, taking everyone to lunch. Yeah, that's money out of my pocket, but it's a free lunch for them. It's community, it's fellowship. We can have a good time together. It's those rewards that, I think help. And then recognition. We do awards at the end of the year. Again, money is super important because of the economy that we're in. You got to have it or else life's not going to be great. But you can also reward people outside of the monetary basis, again, with the awards, special recognition, taking them to lunch, treating them fairly. So I agree. If you do better work, you should get more. And for our salaried folks, we still do the pay increases. Like you've been performing, exceeding our expectations, essentially. We're going to give you a pay raise sooner than maybe you were expecting. So that's our job. That's our goal, is to always elevate our folks and to pay them more. I tell most people, like, if I want you to make me pay the top, make me pay you so much money you'll never want to leave. Because if you're doing that, that means you're killing it for me and we're all succeeding together.
Right. I like it. That abundance mentality that we should all have. Justin, it's been great to have you here. I've learned a lot about you and your business. Anything else you want to tell anyone maybe in your zone, anyone who is listening to you, your message to the world, and how can we get in touch with you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm on LinkedIn, Justin Toomey. You can find me anytime. I'm on there now because I realize I've got to be on there to get my message out. But if you're in the commercial real estate world and you're looking for any advice, any good management services, or if you want us to double check something, by all means, reach out, because we have come across a lot of folks that are in desperate need of our services, and we're here to provide them. That's why we want to grow, because we realize we're needed, that we do a good job, and that treat others the way you want to be treated. If I have an asset or a client, I'm going to treat it the way I would want it to be treated if it was mine. And so that has paid dividends for us and for our clients. So if we can do that for anybody listening, we'd love to do that.
That's been good to meet you, and hopefully we'll keep in touch, and who knows what businesses come later, right? All right. See you soon. Thanks for listening to the 80/20 Recruit podcast. If you found today's episode valuable, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your network. Want more tips? Follow us on LinkedIn and visit our website 8020recruit.com for exclusive resources. See you next time.